I'm up here to give you an extraordinary view of main crop garden number 3, and what I want to do is convey a dimensional aspect to one of my gardens by coming up high. I'm up here on a ladder, see that? So we'll start right away. Right next to me is Peachtree. This is the first year it's bearing fruit. And the peach is on the sun side of the garden. So as we march towards fall equinox, this garden is going to receive more shade. So keep that in mind. We also have grapevines along the shed, both east and west. And we have another peach tree, and I made a multi-dimensional aspect just to this tree alone, and I'll get to that once I climb off the ladder. But this tree is also having peaches, although not as many. Behind me, there's kiwis and a mayday tree, but that's not part of the garden. That's outside of the garden fence. So let's start on the west. After the peach tree, we have a grapevine growing along the fence, which is about 4 feet tall, and it's climbing up the shed. That's one of my favorite grapevines. It's seedless Canadas. And below the grapevine, in the shade of the grapevine, we have gooseberries. That's that Finnish name one over there. If we can get some gooseberries in the picture or not. Yeah, they're right in there. There they are. And we are nursing a red jostaberry underneath the peach tree and the grapevine. So some of my grandma's peonies are there in the corner, both corners. And this trellis that I built out of cedar sticks is trellising climbing beans. And there is a special kind of Australian squash in there growing. And I also have a couple of blue Hopi corn. So we're looking at the 1st of July right now, or 2nd July, the 2nd day of July. This is all going to just explode upwards. No, it's the 3rd July. Tomorrow's the 4th already. So all this, and I expect those climbing beans. We already have a couple of them that are up over the horizontal stick, and that's about 4 foot tall as well. I expect all of them to be hanging off of those sticks that are, 7-8 feet tall, 7-8 feet long once you measure them. Maybe they're only 6.5 or 7 feet tall, but they're 8 feet long because they're stretched out that way. And they'll be getting the sun. The Hopi corn will be getting the sun. The squash leaves are large leaves, and I think they'll get plenty of dappled sunlight to make a crop. You can see underneath the pea vine, that's the squash right there. There's actually one in the bed, and then there's one aside from the bed. That's going to be the chicken coop once I get it done. I'm going slow. And then this bed I think is rather special. It's yacon and those loft house landrace beans. So there's a timing aspect here. One is the beans are now setting their crop. You can see the blossoms. They'll be having beans there in the next couple days forming. I've been saving those as dry beans, so they'll, if I don't decide to eat them as green beans, we'll just leave them on the plants, let them dry out, and then when I harvest the yacon is when I'll harvest the bean pods. But the timing aspect is they're getting their fruit set before the yacon takes over, because these yacon are going to grow 7 feet tall on their own, and they'll shade out the beans. So the beans have to hurry, and these landrace beans from Loft House, they're fast. So I expect this to work. I mean, I planted them both at the same time. The yacon was already had a developed root in a little plant because I was nursing in my basement. And then I planted the beans at the same time I planted those little bitty plants, those little nodules with roots and a little plant. And it could be that I have to get my timing a little bit better, where I have to plant the beans a little bit earlier, hold off on the Yacon, but I don't think so. It's looking really nice right now. There's the best one. That really looks dandy. Look at that. But the timing is the beans are going to set their crop before the Yacon takes over, and then the Yacon is going to be above, and as the plant dies and dries out, the nitrogen in the plant is going to be released into the soil, and at the end, when the Yacon are bulbing up, they're going to be able to take advantage of that nitrogen source. But this has always been a spot where there's been milkweed. I let them grow. If they're really in the way, like in the path or something, then they'll get removed. But if they're not in the way, I let them grow. We have a thistle here. Once all this stuff is established, it's, I come in here water, I can avoid it, and it don't bother me to brush up against it once in a while. I like thistles because it feeds the goldfinch, brings up nutrients. And then we have this wonderful white imperial currant growing here. In the next couple days, I'm going to be a picking and a grinning because they're getting close. And there are also some josta berries located in there. There's a josta berry right there. They're actually planted outside the fence, but their branches are coming in. And oh yeah, and then over here we have a Jan's Prairie gooseberry, which, oh, I love those gooseberries. They are really sweet. And the Shishandra vine is growing in here too. I've got a small crop of garlic growing down here in the bottom. And then in this little hardware cloth circle, I have potatoes and peas growing. And they're mostly in the shade. I read this last winter that potatoes will form in the shade, so I've got a whole bunch of experiments going to check that out. We'll let you know. So that is all. Everything here. We are growing on the ground, we are growing up high, we are growing trees, we are growing bushes, we're growing a lot of stuff. The main crop garden number 3. We're going to talk about the multi-dimensional aspect of this peach tree. I actually tied it off at an angle. Let me see if I can get in there. Oh, there's a toad. Let's see, we got to get a picture of a toad. Where'd he go? Oh, he's so fast I can't even get at him. There he is. My slug eating buddies. Man, there's a lot of toads this year. So you can see I've got this peach tree at an angle. It's leaning away from the main crop garden. And I did that intentionally to allow more sun inside, but something happened unexpected, and I kind of like, and I'm going to leave it go, is it sent out some shoots here on the side that it's bent away from. So like this one here is a really nice shoot right here. It's going straight up. Obviously, that's what it wants to do, right? And then there's one that came out here at an angle. So when I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, more branches means more peaches. So I can kind of see this tree distributing out like a fan. But not just a 2-dimensional fan, more of a 3-dimensional fan, more of a multiple dimension fan, multi-dimensions in all directions, coming out of that single trunk. And hopefully it doesn't, well, it won't. I'll just won't allow a lead to take over. Anything starts to run up and be dominant, I'm going to clip it off. Yeah. And now we're on the midday sun, so I'm going to show you something about the solar aspect. Here's the stake I put in. We're right at the edge of the bed with the Yacon, and the Yacon are low right now, and you see you got shade. But as we work up the stake, all of a sudden we start to get sunshine. They get up a little higher, then they'll get more sun. So my idea is as these Yacon grow, they're going to stay above the sunshine level as the earth begins to tilt away from the sun. We still got another 3 weeks or so before it starts to do it fairly quickly. And maybe there's such a thing as this Yacon here only gets shade, and then it'll be an experiment. How many tubers will it make being mostly in shade? Whereas this one here will probably be in the shade, and for 4 weeks right there at that level. But as they rise up and come back to here, they're going to have sun because they're higher, because they've grown taller. So that's the solar aspect idea or dimension to this bed right here. At this level, most of them are in the sunlight. These ones on the end during noon or midday sun, they're in the shade, but then in the morning and the evening sun, they get rays because the sun now is not directly overhead or towards the south. It's tracking back towards the north. So you don't think about the sun as doing this. This isn't just what the sun does. What it's doing, and it's not, and the sun isn't really moving, it's the earth spinning and tilting one way or the other from the sun. So what's happening is the rays start over here and then come toward the camera, and then finally it's at its pinnacle, and then it goes away. So that's what the sunlight is doing here. When the sun is over in this direction, now it can get down into this bed right here. So, yeah, and this peach tree also has a limb coming up straight up because I angled it away. And we're going to have more branches here. And then I planted some climbing beans. You can see climbing beans are coming up in the peach tree. So we're growing peaches and beans together. And this one has peaches and beans and kiwi growing in it. It's all just too much, but we'll find out. You think it's too much until you try it and find out. Then you know whether it is or it isn't.